You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about UFC and Trump if we wanted to.
Yeah, let's go and talk about that.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure what this is about.
Well, it looks like Axios is trying
God.
to... Yeah, they're trying to paint UFC as a villain because Trump has aligned with UFC. That's nothing in this is new.
That's
what's
man,
strange.
Trump has been associated with sports for 40 years. He owned a football team. Herschel Walker played for him.
New Jersey Generals. That's right. USFL. Back in the day. That is an absolute fact. Here is the reason that Trump and Dana White, the president of the UFC, has such a close relationship. Back when Dana took over, UFC was struggling to find places to fight, actual buildings to house fights in, because remember back then there was a lot of politicians screaming that UFC was human cockfighting. That was a narrative, that UFC was human cockfighting, and they were having trouble getting licensed, finding places to fight. And Trump said, you know what? You can fight in my casino. It'll be huge. He wasn't wrong. And that's how Trump and the UFC hooked up. Back in the day, Dana White and Trump gave him a platform. Yeah. And it worked out for everybody involved, and Trump hasn't forgotten it. Dana White hasn't forgotten it.
Yeah. And also, you know, that the Wotes are still going to be furious with Dana White because he refused to shut down during the Wuhan virus.
Oh, God. And throw in the fact that he talked to RNC twice.
Yeah. Dana White was like, hell no, we ain't shutting down.
There is a couple of things that are interesting in this, though, in regards to the WWE. The symbolism was hard to miss. Former President Trump fighting to return to the White House and avoid prison. You hear these assholes avoid prison. Dropped in on a night of UFC fights in Vegas this month and was a guest on the UFC podcast. Oh, I got to listen to that. Trump was on the UFC podcast, folks. Heads up on that. It was a collision of two longtime Trump obsessions, combat sports and crafting a macho image. So far, nothing feels wrong to me. At a time when he faces the prospect of being indicted for a third and potentially fourth time. Trump has done his usual ranting on social media and focused on looking tough while casting himself as a warrior for conservative causes and the working class. Besides aligning with you, this has nothing to do with UFC, but we're throwing this in, Axios. Besides aligning with UFC, he's defended country music star Jason Aldean, who's been under fire from critics who say a video of his promotes violence and lynchings. False narrative. Lies. Aldean denies that. Well, and so does the video and the lyrics to the song, but there's just that. On his Truth social platform, Trump shared a video that includes old audio of him threatening his opponents. Oh, but they're going to tell us the big picture, John. Trump's working class pitch often portrays him as a protector concerned about the threats to their way of life. Well, I mean, he's probably the only one that can actually do it at this point. In a jab at Biden, Trump has seized on some auto workers' concerns about how the EVs Biden touts might affect jobs in the auto industry. That's a fact. That's not a might. Urging the UAW to back Trump's campaign. What has this got to do? A children's choir? You see what the media does here? They have brought into a UFC article, they have brought Jason Aldean in. They've brought in EVs, President Biden. Now they got when a children's choir from South Carolina was mistakenly shooed out of singing at the U.S. Capitol last month, Trump jumped at a chance to become part of the headlines, inviting the choir to perform at a rally in his state. Who cares? What's the problem there exactly?
Man.
They got turned away and he gave them a platform to sing on. That's a negative? How is this shit a negative? Man, it's insane. Trump's affection for you. Oh, we finally got back to the UFC after 3 paragraphs. Great.
I mean, in this article, there doesn't seem to be too much about the UFC.
I guess we're finally getting it. Trump's affection for the UFC goes back more than 2 decades when his hotels hosted UFC fights at a time when many shunned the fledgling sport as too violent. UFC President Dana White credits Trump as being the, quote, first guy that recognized the potential that we saw in the UFC and encouraged us to build our business. Dana has been very open and honest about that. Open and honest. Not everyone involved in UFC orbit world shares White's enthusiasm for Trump. Okay, Dana White has made it very clear that everybody involved in the UFC is welcome to have their own political belief set and can speak their mind. He's made that clear.
Mm-hmm.
He's never shied away from that. His fighters are welcome to do and say, by way of course, free speech, because that's the thing. Dana White he approves of that. Podcaster Joe Rogan, one of the most influential voices among UFC fans and color commentator for fights, repeatedly has turned down Trump as a guest on his popular podcast, even, watch this shit, even as hosted other presidential candidates, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Okay, he had RFK Jr. on that podcast to talk about the damn Wuhan virus. Let's just be real there. It wasn't as a presidential candidate. He had him on to talk about him getting canceled and the Wuhan virus and all the backlash. Because Joe Rogan, Aaron Rodgers, and RFK Jr. all have the same belief set when it comes to the damn virus. And everybody knows that if they do their research. I'm not a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form, Rogan said earlier this year. I've had the opportunity to have him on my show more than once. I've said every time, I don't want to help him. I'm not interested in helping him. Wait a minute.
Trust me. I don't believe Trump going on Rogan is going to help Trump.
Well, look, I'm looking because I'm checking through here. Where's the quote where Rogan said he would vote for Trump instead of Biden?
He didn't. He didn't vote for Biden last time either. He didn't vote for either one of them.
Yeah, but Rogan came out and said if it comes down to Biden or for Trump, he's voting for Trump.
Yeah, he did say that.
I can't find that in this article, John. It doesn't say that. Rogan and Trump did exchange a tight-gripped handshake before the UFC fight. UFC, whose audience is typically young and overwhelmingly male, as if that's a problem.
No shit.
Yeah, is a
like
natural it's a natural platform for Trump. Here we go, whose campaign sees young white men as particularly supportive group.
You know what, Rhodes? Let me tell you this here. If you look at the NFL, the vast majority of the fans are going to be what? White males. MLB, white males. The Marxist NBA of China, the vast majority of the fans are going to be what? White males. Just a fact.
It's baffling to me. It really is. I'm just floored by that. And they leave out all the key things. Okay. Trump's cage side presence at UFC 290, July 8th, led several fighters celebrating their victories to jump on the top of the cage and to point at Trump or shake his hand. Okay, so they go on to talk about Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington, of course, being big Trump supporters. Trump calls White, this is interesting, Trump calls White twice a month, and the pair will talk for an hour about fights. White, who spoke at the 2016 and 2020 Republican conventions, told UFC reporters in April. Trump also calls Ari Emanuel, whose entertainment agency owns UFC and now the WWE, a very close friend. He calls me a lot, I call him a lot, and we talk. Emanuel is the brother of Rahm Emanuel, Biden's ambassador to Japan and former chief of staff to President Obama. Was considered for a White House post, Axios reported then. Trump is also fond of professional wrestling, and they go on. This is kind of interesting. WWE CEO, former, and chairman Vince McMahon was a top donor to Trump's foundation, making multi-million-dollar donations, and Linda McMahon, that's Vince's wife, was on staff.
Yeah.
So,
boy.
And so, but the point is, because Trump likes UFC, and UFC likes Trump, that's a problem. Why is that a problem, John?
It's
I'm
not
trying
a problem.
to figure that out.
They're trying to make it a problem. And like I said, man, news outlets like Axios don't actually cover news, so they just got to make up propaganda.
I
Nothing
mean,
more.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big one to me, though, to not acknowledge that Rogan clearly stated, if it's Trump or Biden, I'm voting for Trump.
Yep.
I mean, I did a video on that. That ain't been that long ago. That was like
that
3
was on
months
like
ago.
3 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, because and it was simple for Rogan. He said Biden's mentally incompetent now.
Yeah. I did a video yesterday.
The guy's got dementia.
Biden said he cured cancer, and then in the same, I believe it was the same speech, he said over 100 people have died of the Wuhan virus. There's 100 less seats at the dinner table. What? Wow.
Dude, he's all over the place.
Yeah. He's getting worse.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.